I'd like to call the meeting to order and make a motion that we go into exec session.
Second.
All in favor?
Purposes of the executive session to confer with counsel.
Say it again?
The purpose of exec session are to confer with council.
Okay.
Back.
Could designate a community access organization to manage the use of the channels. And basically the organization would establish and enforce rules to ensure non-discriminatory access for users. And that was supposed to be the Joint Public Access Committee. There was a draft of an IMA. There really should be an IMA between the town and the village who are sharing this channel, this one channel at this point. In any case, I think there needs to be a committee with a new mission statement and an updated program guide, and I think that in light of the decision to switch from live videography to a fixed camera, that the budget allocation, the contract, and the duties of the program coordinator who coordinates any programming coming into this channel be reviewed to make sure that there is communication, direct communication with the program coordinator and use of the channel and the Nexus machine, that's the machine that coordinates the programming. And the, I guess the last thing I'll say is that as much as I'm a big fan of this television station, I think that these days we really need to move forward and really focus on making sure that as soon as possible, the programming is, the government programming and public programming is all available on the internet for the public.
In response, I just want to make one other observation. Henry, one of the reasons we did things the way we did, there's an American idea, and we don't see it in other countries, but we see it in America on the national level, on the state level, and the local level, that government should not control its own press. Government should not run the cameras. Government should not generate information that appears in the newspaper without a filter, without someone independent being in between the government and the information. That's a principle that was important in how we approach this early on.
Okay, thank you.
Don, I think that's an interesting point, and you should have saved that for discussion.
I'll bring it up again. I'll bring it up again.
Anyone else public comment? Okay, make a motion, we close public comment. Do we need a motion? Okay. Make a motion, we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And first item of the evening related to the Mr. Rizza request for a hardship. Based on the record, I make a motion that we deny the hardship.
Second.
Let's do a roll call.
Mayor, you said deny.
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Aye.
Sorry?
Aye.
Trustee Rossler? Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Aye. I have to turn my fan off. All I can hear is fan, sorry. There we go. Okay. Do I need to go through? Did you get Tom?
Aye.
Mayor?
Aye. We did everyone? Okay. next agenda, so we're all set with that. Next agenda item. We have a presentation from the Open Space Institute.
Good evening.
You want to grab a microphone?
Mike, sure.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll reach.
Hi, good evening. I'm Peter Karras, Capital's Projects and Design Manager with Open Space Institute. And I'm here tonight with Jennifer Garofalini, who's our Director of Stewardship. Thank you, New Paltz Village Board, for having us tonight. We're really excited tonight to present our proposed River to Ridge Trail project to you, which is well, I understand, a long time coming in the community. It's been talked about for a long time, and Open Space Institute is in a position now to come forward with a proposal to make this village to the Schwangau Bridge connection a reality. So, just a little background. New Paltz is quite the hub for recreation, and becoming a hub for recreation, and it's exciting times, in my opinion, for New Paltz, both the village and the town. With the extension of the Mohawk Preserve coming eastward towards the village, and with OSI's work implementing the recommendations of the New Paltz Open Space Plan, with land acquisitions coming from the village west to the Schwangau Bridge. In 2015, we managed to finalize this vision with land acquisition and have a land ownership corridor from the Wallkill River to the Schwangau Bridge. So before you is a map, which is basically our master vision for this area. And to describe that, the area that's outlined in blue with an orange background is the village of New Paltz. And you can see the Wallkill River. Wallkill River runs along the western side of the village. The purple line on the right side is the Wallkill Valley Rail Trail, which connects Wallkill with what's now the city of Kingston, which is an exciting development for rail trails. You'll see an area that's highlighted in red, which extends from east to west. That is areas that are currently owned by Open Space Institute and have been protected from development, which includes the old Van Alls Farm over the Wallkill Flats, and the recent Watchtower property, which brings you over the foothills to Butterville Road. And then the area highlighted in green on that map is the recent acquisition of Mohawk Preserve, which is their foothills property. That includes the Testimonial Gateway and the Humble Marsh and the farms on Butterville Road. So really with these land conservation organizations working, we managed to protect some of the most scenic properties in the village and the town on the west towards the ridge. So the question is, on top of that, so how do we get the public to enjoy these beautiful properties rather than just driving in their cars on 299 to get from point A to point B? And that's where we see an opportunity here to generate an off-road connection for the public to enjoy these lands. So the vision is that a person visiting New Paltz could start at the Wallkill Valley Rail Trail. They'll make their way along the village sidewalks and across the under development new Carmine Liberta Bridge, which includes a pedestrian component on the north side. And we're working closely with the county to ensure that we can move people across that bridge. Our River to Ridge Trail then physically starts and makes its way down to the Wallkill River. Many of you probably know there's an existing agricultural driveway that dives down off 299 and makes its way down to that lower farm field, which is full of corn and pumpkins right now, being farmed by the Ferrante family that runs the Wallkill Valley Farm Market. And you'll notice that the village boundary crosses the Wallkill River at one spot, which is just north of 299 and connects to Springtown Road. So the River to Ridge Trail runs along the Wallkill River at the edge of the agricultural fields, which gives you some great views and interaction with that water resource, and brings you to an existing boat launch, which was implemented by the village many years ago. And the trail is proposed, based on our field reconnaissance, trying to lay it out in the best spot. We'll traverse this village parcel, is the proposal, and connect over to that boat launch. In the same vicinity of the boat launch is an elevated berm that I understand used to contain an old water pump station, and also a large gravel, essentially parking area that exists now along the driveway from Springtown Road to the boat launch. And that's our area of focus tonight with the village, is to discuss the opportunities and making that connection. But to further explain the trail will then cross Springtown Road. It'll run along the north side of the Wallkill Flats field, as highlighted by the green line on the map. It'll cross Lewis Lane, where we'll get a framed picture of Skytop as you cross the road. Trail then makes its way up onto the Watchtower property, which we refer to as the Butterfield Hills, to create a loop actually on that property to allow folks that are venturing from the village a unique opportunity to experience a great view from that property of the bridge. It's quite striking once you get to the western part of that. And then for those more adventurous, the trail will then continue down slope and into the Mohawk Preserve foothills, where we're partnering with the preserve to implement a free loop within the Mohawk Preserve in the vicinity of Brook and Pine Farm. So in essence, this River to Ridge Trail, with its loops on Watchtower and into the foothills property, equals about 6 miles of improved public access trails, which really gives you a River to Ridge connection. The trail is intended to mimic a farm road or a carriage road on the mountain. It will be 10 feet wide. It will be a natural stone surface. We have the luck of having some really great topography to work with, so it makes construction very easy. We're utilizing existing infrastructure that's there in the form of culverts as it crosses drainage ways that crisscross that property. There will be a few new footbridges and other wayside amenities that people will need to be able to interact with in the form of benches and trail signage. But really, it's intended to enhance this experience of making this connection from the village to the bridge. So the area of focus, and where we'd like to partner with the village to come up with some solutions, is this idea of the trail traversing through village-owned property on the west side of the Wallkill. So you'll see the blue outline of the village boundary, and the area highlighted in orange all the way to the center of the Wallkill River is a parcel owned by the village of New Paltz. It includes a driveway, actually 2 driveways. One driveway accesses that elevated berm area where there are some picnic tables. And then a second driveway to the north brings you all the way out to the boat launch. So there's an existing driveway right here to the berm, and an existing driveway that brings you out to the boat launch. With the use of our new drone, we've taken some pictures of our property. And this is a view hovering over the intersection of 299 and Springtown Road. So this is 299, and here's Springtown Road. The Wallkill River is located back here. And the area that the village owns is in this vicinity right there. And there's a blow-up of that. You can see the elevated berm area. You can see the driveway entrances. The DPW has a pile of gravel in that gravel parking area. We understand that they use that area for storage, both materials and snow storage. And then that driveway makes its way to the boat launch, which is buried in the trees here. And just to give you a sense of where that trail lays in on the landscape, comes along the river to the boat launch, out the driveway, and around that berm area before it crosses Springtown and makes its way to the Mohawk Preserve. We're working on some better graphics. These are a little rudimentary. So this is just a solid aerial of that area, and you can see the land use that's happening within the village parcel and surrounding. You can see the driveway and the berm area Second, the northern driveway. You can see this large gravel area, which the public uses for parking, and the driveway to the boat launch. And then you can see the extent of the village DPW snow storage activities in the winter. This was a tough winter for snow removal in the village, so they made good use of that. Well, one thing that you'll notice is some of these features that technically the villagers are off property. So one of our goals here is to try and work out an arrangement, and it can take several forms, and we're open to all suggestions, to one, allow the village and the public to continue to use the boat launch, and also to allow this idea of a public access trail managed by LSI to traverse the village property. Near the boat launch, there's some water infrastructure, water system infrastructure in the form of valves on the surface. I'm not sure if there's any kind of piping underground in that area, but it would seem with the history of this zone, it makes sense that there might be some water supply pipes underground. So that's a consideration, and also the snow storage activities that the village engages in the vicinity of the project. So a closer view, which shows some of the landforms a little more. We've actually surveyed this area with our surveyor Brooks and Brooks for a tighter understanding of where the physical features fall in relation to the property line. So you can see the boat launch and the water valves and things are clearly on LSI land, as well as some of the driveways. So another thing we'd like to work with the village on is the existing parking area, that large gravel oval, and making that a little more formal and inviting, not only for trail users that would use the River Ridge Trail and the public using the boat launch, but there seems to be an opportunity that with OSI making this trail connection along the river to the bridge and into the village, it now opens up this parking area to serve as a more functional parking area for people that are visiting and using the village. So instead of a dangerous walk potentially on Springtown Road 299, there's an alternate route to get us from this parking area, which I think could probably support about 40 cars. That's to be determined, and we're happy to work with the village to conceptually design that and offer that our expertise and site design to help come up with a really great flood resilient solution here. This isn't a floodplain, but also to give the village another outlet for parking for what is a stretch parking system in the village. So that's generally the proposal. We're currently before the town of New Paltz Planning Board with a formal site plan application, which I expect the village of New Paltz to be an interested agency. We believe that because the village owns this property, and there's back and forth between features that exist on our property that the village has installed and is controlling, and in our proposal for the trail that we can work in a manner that come to some kind of a use agreement between those compatible uses. So we're open to questions and suggestions, but really we're taking this opportunity to describe the proposal to you and what our plans for our property are, and to see where the overlap is, so we can use the village as a partner in this project, so that we feel that it benefits really the public at large, and we're happy that we can provide these recreational opportunities to this community. So.
Peter, I have a question about survey work that you did.
Yes.
Because the village has a water line that comes down Mountain Rest Road,
Right.
and we have another water line to the north of Mountain Rest Road. Does either one of those water lines go underneath this property?
I'm not sure what the subsurface conditions are. This was a surface survey, so we can dig into that a little bit to try and understand. I'm interested if the village has any kind of mapping that shows where that is.
True.
So would that land in DPW probably?
Yes.
Yeah, so we can certainly, do some due diligence and try and understand where these water lines may come across.
Great.
And how that relates to this surface infrastructure. Yes?
Question, what do you envision for crossing Springtown?
Sure. So we're working with the county DPW, and we've selected a location to the south of the southern driveway. So right about in this zone, it'll be a surface crossing, a painted crosswalk with warning signage both north and south, and that seems like the ideal location because it's equidistant between the intersection of 299 in Springtown and Mount Rest Road, Springtown. It has the best sight distance, it's more than adequate for the design speed of the road. And we've been informed by the county that they wouldn't have any problem showing that crossing for it. But we'll need to deal with some, safety and welfare issues as we do that. Yes, sir.
I didn't hear you mention bicycles at all, so.
Sure.
Tell me what your vision is for a bike-friendly
So this trail, because of its width and surface, is designed to be a multi-use trail.
multi.
So it is going to accommodate walkers, hikers, runners, bikers, equestrian,
Equestrian.
cross-country skiing, all of whatever's happening on the rail trail and the Mohawk Preserve, this linkage between those resources, it seems to make sense to have the same compatible uses on the trail. So it'll be a 10-foot wide surface, it'll have some mowed shoulders, it'll essentially be at grade, so you won't see it won't be sitting up from the agriculture. It's pretty flat through that zone. And we see that it becomes a real connection for most user groups as possible. Yeah.
When you were talking about the looped trail,
Yes,
you mentioned that you were working with Mohawk Preserve, I'm sorry, Tom, to make sure part of that trail would be able to be used with no fee.
that's correct.
All right, so we let the preserve, we know they need their money. But the rest of the trails would require people to pay a fee for preserve to
Sure.
use?
So I'll just show you on the map. It's tough to see because of the lighting, but essentially when the Riveter Ridge Trail comes down to Butterville Road, it makes its way to Pine Road. Pine Road is a town road, so essentially the public can walk up and down Pine currently. That would become part of what we call the loop. It would connect above Brook Farm, come down Lenape Lane, and then run parallel with Butterville Road. So essentially the free loop in the foothills would encompass Pine Road and Lenape Lane and be within the farms. And the preserve's been really great to work with. I know that that's been a heavy lift for them, this concept. It goes against their model, but they're trying really hard to be a community member and allow people that would enjoy that flat, very accessible loop into those foothills as part of our project to accommodate that. So with our work making the connection and their work allowing that pretty generous 2-mile loop within their property, it really gives what would be the public, it would be free to the public, a really great experience into the bridge.
In your next meeting with them, just convey that is of great importance to one trustee.
Yes.
Thank you.
You mentioned 40 parking spots on the village-owned property
Yes.
that you would be looking to do site improvements on.
Yes.
Is there, because I've been brainstorming a little bit with our village planner, David Gilmore, about like the optimal number of spots. Is there a ratio with number of spots versus the size of the recreation opportunity that we're describing? Does it also make sense to build X number of spots now with the option to add spots in the future? Like how would we look at this? Or how
Sure,
would we
so
plan?
it sounds like it would be prudent to design this in a phased manner. So we wouldn't want to do anything from a site design perspective that would prohibit us from thinking about adding the village, having an opportunity to add more spots there if they felt like it was necessary. So I think what would be great is that we could have a little interaction outside of a village board meeting to have a design charrette to come up with some concepts that take into account, what we think the trail needs would be, what the village needs are, because there's more than just parking that's happening there. And the DPW, and maybe with Dave as a planner, to roll our sleeves up and break out some pencils and see what we can come up with. There is a magic number. We don't want to make it too big that it's obtrusive, but we don't want to make it so small that it becomes a problem in and of itself. So I don't think that there's a definitive calculation that you can make that gives you a number, but there's a feel that you can have that will give you a sense of security that yes, we have the right number of parking spaces. And I'm pulling 40 just out of my analysis of the size of that existing gravel area, right? And some shaping and maybe some guide, wood guide rails.
So you're suggesting next steps would be a brainstorming session with our superintendent of public works and our
Yes.
village planner.
Yeah, we'd like to better understand the DPW's needs to make sure that we're not doing anything that includes the village use of the property. We also want to make sure that we're not doing anything that use is potentially impacting the public's use to access the boat launch of the trail. So it seems like a good opportunity to do something cutting edge, especially being that you guys are talking about flood resiliency and green infrastructure. I mean, this is all playing into the same thing, right?
Got it.
Yes.
In terms of maintenance,
Yes.
plowing, those sort of issues?
Yes.
Would that be an OSI responsibility?
Well, OSI would certainly be taking care of the trail. We can talk about who would potentially take care of the parking area. Again, it would be great to partner with the village. The village is already plowing that area now in the winter, so they have access for the snow storage area. We did work with the village DPW to, if you remember this winter when we closed on Watchtower, we did some cross-country ski trail grooming out in the flats and as a trial run to see how it would go. It was kind of unannounced, and we got access to some grooming equipment, and we did some loops, and we worked with the DPW to actually plow out that upper area to allow for at least some parking for folks to park in. And it seemed to be very successful. That's I think up for discussion. It's a good question, but we would certainly be taking care of the trail, but the parking area, that maybe that's something that the village could just continue to do like it's doing now.
Anyone else have additional questions?
I just think what we need to do is to determine, I believe, who on the board would be the liaison to work with David and DPW so that the board will be fully informed at all times. I'm not volunteering.
I would volunteer. It's a project I'm interested in spending time on.
That's a good
If
idea.
anyone else is interested, you can.
I'll join you.
Okay. So we're good with Don and I.
Yes.
Take a look at this with David and Blue. Okay.
So at the same time that we're thinking about parking options, maybe we can talk about the mechanics of granting the village, easement or light or whatever the mechanic is to get you guys access to the boat launch legally, right? And the water infrastructure, the driveways, and vice versa for the trail. So we can work on both paths at the same time and maybe come up with a proposal that we can present to the full board for consideration.
Thanks for the presentation, Peter.
Great, thank you very much, and thanks for your time.
Rebecca just stepped out. I think she's going to wait back. Oh, is she there?
Turn the lights on.
Perfect.
Is that enough light for the camera?
Yeah, before we move forward with our next agenda item, I wanted to, I had a Village of New Paltz trivia question. It's kind of an announcement too. So what happened 24 years ago on September 9th, this date 24 years ago? That's why I wanted Rebecca. I thought if anyone would know, like Rebecca.
I'd like to call a friend.
24.
Okay, you give up? So Blue to Villager and Nick Coddington started with our DPW 24 years ago on this date. So this is their 24th anniversary. Nancy Bronco brought that to my attention. I thought it would be nice to mention there.
So what are we going to do about this job hopping?
I guess another interesting, and Blue shared this with me today, that actually Nick started with the village 24 years ago, but then he served in the armed forces for 4 years during that time. So he was with the DPW, he was away for 4 years, and then has been with us ever since. So thanks to both of those gentlemen, we regularly hear really positive feedback about the work that our DPW does.
And what institutional memory they have, they know everything. It's incredible.
Okay, next item, we're going to have a presentation from Steve McMaster from Sam 6 to discuss. We've been brainstorming with some other downtown businesses to try to identify options using cost-saving renewables as an alternative to natural gas. So you guys have the floor. You want to come over and grab a mic?
We're going to take a mic back here because the floor was retold. See the stretches.
You might have to move up.
Nope, he's got it.
Yep, okay.
He's got it.
Right.
Hi, so I'm Steve McMaster. I'm the CEO of Sam 6. Sam 6 is a energy and engineering company. We recently invested in New Paltz and bought the property 15 Platica, just on the road there, and the adjacent Northern Forest next to it. And what we do, we've been around 15 years. We were based on the West Coast originally. We help electricity companies like Central Hudson redesign their grid, make it more efficient, save them having to build more power stations. So we're effectively trying to save electricity by making efficiencies. We do it from model their grid, everything from transmission right down to distribution. We predict failure points on the grid, look at all the equipment involved. When there is a failure, we help them reconfigure the grid to restore power as soon as possible, things like that. The issue in the States is that especially in the Northeast here, we have quite an old grid. It's, America's a new country, but the electricity here came about the same time as it did in England and France, so it's pretty much on the cutting edge, around 1900 with Edison. And it's old. A lot of the infrastructure is very old. It's very inefficient. It's only about 60% efficient. So from power station to your house, 40% of the electricity is lost just getting to the house. Some of that's lost in the power station itself. Some of it's lost on the way to the house. The other big thing too here is that we only really say about 40% of our entire power station output is really designed for just about 5 minutes per day at massive peaks. And these peaks are basically when people come home and they turn their AC on, or the microwave or whatever else. That's a huge peak. 2 hours earlier, there was pretty much no electricity requirement compared to that. And the other peak is in the morning too. So you have these literally just minutes, they extend to probably about an hour, it's minutes of time. And so the bulk of the power requirements come those 2 times. And one of the issues we have is because we rely on very, very large power stations, nuclear, coal, gas, whatever else. And these power stations are designed to run up really fast. Nuclear especially can come online pretty fast to deal with these peaks. But what an aging grid like this, the one in the States, needs is something called distributed generation. And what distributed generation means is instead of having 3 or 4 massive power plants in the northeast, there's one nuclear power plant and serves pretty much 60% of New York City's needs, for example. To have massive amounts of very small stations. And these can be regular gas power stations, but more interestingly, though, they can run on renewables, so they can be solar power stations, etc. And what these distributed generation things do is allow you to use your infrastructure more efficiently. So rather than having to transmit electricity all the way from Canada, which a chunk of New York's electricity comes from Canada, you can generate it right here in New Paltz or in local communities. And the concept here is, of course, to think local instead of global, which seems to me something that, since I've been in New Paltz, you guys are embracing on many different levels. So when we invested in the property here, the first thing we wanted to do, of course, is make our building energy efficient. So we're making vast strides on not to use any electricity, so better windows, better insulation, etc. We're going to put solar panels on the roof with your permission. We have space to build another property, which we want to be energy efficient from the word go. But then in describing this, we run into Rogers, and we described our plans here. We talked about the concept of perhaps we're not the only ones doing this, and maybe there are other developers or other business owners in town who'd like to consider making their buildings energy efficient. And Tim introduced me to a couple of people, and there are several people here who share this idea. And we got together a few times, and one of the resources that we felt was missing from New Paltz was a starter kit, effectively. So if somebody's interested in whether they're a homeowner, apartment owner, office owner like myself, some type of kit that enables us to very simply do the right thing. How do we invest in solar? Where should we get it from? How much does it sort of cost? What sort of time frame is it going to take for us to get our money back? That type of thing. In discussing this on a local level too, and on a building level, we discovered some other things that are happening in this region, and that's why I wanted to bring it up in this sort of discussion here. So this is either just the start of a discussion, or depending on how boring this becomes, could be the end of the discussion too. I'm actually sitting next to Susan Gillespie who's the VP at Bar. She's also involved with the Citizens for Local Power. And she can describe to us a bit more what these terms mean, but there's something called community distributed generation. So when we talked about getting away from nuclear power, getting away from fracked gas, maybe getting away from coal-fired power stations, there's something that the community can do by actually creating, for example, a solar powered array on some community property, whether it's on top of a school, on top somewhere in SUNY maybe, on top of my building, maybe on top of several buildings, and sharing the power output from it. So it's like a community-run power station, mini one. And the concept there is that would alleviate some of these peaks, but it would also provide, after initial investment, ultimately almost free electricity after 10 years. But certainly electricity that has no emissions. And I was personally interested in seeing if over time we could build up a critical mass of businesses in the New Paltz area that would actually do this. And to me, it would be a great story. There are no cities currently, no towns or cities in America that are off-grid. And there's no reason why New Paltz couldn't dream pretty big and aim to be one of those, to be the first one maybe. So there's this community distributed generation, which for a town this size, we could pretty much go solar and go off-grid completely with the right size solar. Bigger than that, though, there's something else called community choice aggregation, which is something that the government is involved with, certainly on the state level. And what that is a slightly bigger grouping. It's now multiple municipalities, it could just be New Paltz. But it's municipalities, businesses, business owners, individuals too, who are apparently, and Susan can explain this to us just in a few minutes here, apparently can act as their own utility. So in other words, rather than just adding to the grid, so we have Central Hudson for our electricity plus our solar that we provide ourselves, this community choice aggregation is the next level of that, where maybe it's a few years further down the line, more mature now. We have a few solar power stations maybe, And we feel we have enough to basically generate enough electricity so that we wouldn't need to go to a typical utility. So we become a utility. It's not something you do on a impulse level, but it's something you would do maybe with a few towns around here. Just enough people, maybe 200,000 people would be more than sufficient, maybe 50,000 would be enough in terms of the size of the meter. So what I was interested in was to maybe start that discussion and start with how do we, if this was something that enough people in this town was interested in pursuing, how do we get there? And let's start really simple with how to put solar panels on our roofs, how to better insulate for those who wish to do so. How do we fund that? One of the things that we would need is, as I say, the starter kit. I personally, as a business owner, was interested in contributing to that, so I would contribute to a study that enabled you to have an information booklet that you could give out to other businesses or other public property owners that would actually say, these are the 4 local companies who do this is the typical cost, this is what you can expect to get out of it. But more intriguingly though, I wanted that to be a step 1 of maybe multiple steps going to community distributed generation and looking at some type of town level initiative for solar power maybe. It's needed and the United States is going to do it, and it's mostly because of our crumbling infrastructure. I'm not even talking about the environment in there. Clearly, environmental benefits, zero emissions, and having a renewable infrastructure would be paramount. But this type of distributed generation and taking literally power into your own hands is something that's going to happen. I mean, it's not just from a crumbling infrastructure point of view, but also from a terrorist point of view. It's relatively simple right now in the United States to mark out key points and actually cripple the distribution system. So that type of resilience is going to become more and more needed as time goes on. Population's increasing in the country. New York City's forecast to have 100 million people in it in 10 years' time. And a lot of those people want to come to New York because it's such a great city. So this is something from an infrastructure point of view, from an ethical and from an environmental point of view I'm interested in. And a nice starting point would be something that I could fund, which you could use as a community resource, would simply be this information booklet of how on the individual level you can actually contribute to this, and from a political support point of view you could help the local representatives get to the next level. Any questions, of course, that Susan's, I know it's late, so Susan's going to quickly describe community distributed generation and community choice, what that actually means for your people.
Hi, it's nice to be here with you. Citizens for Local Power has been interested in the energy system for about 2.5 years now. We've been involved in a number of things, both at the state level and locally. Some of you may have come to one or the other of our forums on energy. We were involved in questions about the new capacity zone, which raised all our rates a little while ago. We've been involved in the rate case, the Central Case. We've been very active participants in the so-called REV, Reforming the Energy Vision, which is the Public Service Commission's attempt to sort of turn the energy system around more in the direction of distributed generation, as Steve was saying. I think what's really important to see, we're confronted now with a lot of individual decisions. Do I put solar into business? Do we allow gas infrastructure in the village? But I think it's important for people to take a little bit step back and a broad view right now, because the energy system is changing so fast. And so if you want to make the right decision in the short run, you have to look at the longer run as well, and some of the issues that you were just discussing. We, Citizens for Local Powers, were particularly active in working to bring community choice aggregation to the state of New York, and to this area in particular. It's not a new idea. It started in the 90s in Massachusetts, and it is legal now in 6 states, including California, Massachusetts, Ohio, Illinois, New Jersey, Vermont. And what it is it's a structure through which municipality or a group of municipalities join together to aggregate initially the buying power of their residents. So that if the town of New Paltz or the village of New Paltz joins the community choice aggregation, everyone in the town of New Paltz who doesn't opt out becomes part of this aggregation, which gives you the ability to, first of all, buy energy more thoughtfully, perhaps, and more cheaply, and with more reliability and concern for the environment than the utility does. Utility has only one goal, other than meeting any state requirements, and that is to bring you electricity and to make money. The community choice aggregation gives the citizens of the town the ability to decide on their priorities in terms of buying energy. Do we want to be greener? Do we want to have a green option and a less green option? Do we want to support local energy producers? Do we want to sign a long-term agreement with a local solar farm or other renewable energy producer? So that's the first level really of community choice aggregation. That's mostly how it exists in this country, and they've been very successful. They can go out of existence, but almost none have, and they've generally produced less expensive, greener power for the communities that have created them. There's also, though, now beginning to be a more developed form of community choice aggregation. It's often called CCA, is it right if I say CCA? It's all these acronyms. Which goes beyond just the purchase of power supply to really rethink and recreate the energy system in a way that involves more distributed generation. I think that's why the Public Service Commission in New York is now quite open to this idea. In their recent documents, they have put forward community choice aggregation as something they would like to see happen. The governor mentioned it among his priorities in the State of the Union address, so it's becoming something that is under more discussion in the state. In particular, the kind of program that's called CCA 2.0, which involves the municipalities themselves and other stakeholders having an active voice in deciding what their energy system will look at. So if we, in Ulster County, we do have support from the county, we have support from the village and from the town of New Paltz and from many other municipalities to do that, if we start that process here, we would do a couple of things. The first thing we would do is we form a steering committee with representatives from interested municipalities, including hopefully New Paltz. We would sit down to begin to discuss what form this should take. Should it be an authority? Should it be some other legal form? And what are the values and priorities in these communities? How important is it to support local jobs? How important do the people here feel it is? To keep the prices down. There are ways to do all those things, but the balance might be different. We would, through that group, initiate some planning studies. We would map the renewable potential of this area. How much solar and where. What about wind? Maybe not so plausible, but perhaps small hydro is definitely could be a possibility around here. And aerobic digestion for farms. And the sort of sleeper issue, which is a really big one, I think, is energy efficiency. Saving energy by retrofitting buildings and that kind of thing. A community choice aggregation of this type would have the power to set rates and could facilitate certain kinds of development in that way by encouraging more solar or more efficiency, for example, and would provide a way for the towns and their citizens to take back control of the energy system, which we now really don't have much control over. One thing that community choice aggregation does not do is it does not try to purchase the poles and wires. So it would remain on the grid, although with microgrids and storage increasing, there are opportunities to island from the grid when it, for example, goes down. I don't want to get too technical in this discussion. I think the main issue is that there's a way for this town and others to begin to plan for an energy future which is locally controlled and which would realize the values that people and their citizens hold. At the same time, there's a lot of changes happening, not only those that we desire to have, through the changes at the Public Service Commission. There's a smaller, a more recent possibility, which just came up not quite 2 months ago, which is called Community Distributed Generation. And it's a new program which is made possible by the Public Service Commission, and which I think is going to have some funding support from NYSERDA, although that's not really known yet. And this would allow us to do smaller projects more quickly while the community choice aggregation process is still ongoing. It will take a while to create this new institution. And that would allow groups of businesses and residents with the town, with or without the town, or the town could be involved, to do shared generation projects. You've heard probably about community solar, right? That typically solar gardens where some people will get together to share a solar array, for example. That hasn't been legal in New York, but it is now, just recently, as a result of a lot of advocacy at the state level, and the fact that the Public Service Commission itself and even the utilities recognize that the system has to change. So, community distributed generation, you need to have a sponsor, which can be a business, it can be a nonprofit, or it can be a governmental entity. And then you have additional members. There need to be at least 10 members to join up, to invest together in a distributed generation facility. I'd say facility, and I think most people are thinking solar, but it could also be energy efficiency, it could be fuel cells, it could be anaerobic digestion in farming areas, it could take a number of forms. What excites me about the situation here in Paltz is that you already have a group of interested business owners and others who seem to be thinking along these lines. And so I think there's a terrific opportunity here to move on this if people wanted to get together and pursue it. And Citizens for Local Power would be glad to be involved in any way that we could, as a resource essentially, because we've been studying these issues and we have some connections at the PSC now, and so forth. I think the first step would probably be, again, to maybe assemble a group of people who wanted to move forward on this, and have an ongoing conversation about what makes the most sense. The community distributed generation, there's a kind of a preferential sign-up period lasting 6 months, starting in October and ending in May, which is open. They'll give priority with interconnection. Interconnection, as you may know, is a big issue. Getting interconnected to the grid for a new project. They're trying to speed it up, but it's not always happening. But for two kinds of projects which are in opportunity zones, which the utility has identified as places where it would be particularly valuable to do things like that. New Paltz, Rosendale, and Kingston are all these kinds of zones. So we have advantage of being sort of ahead of the line for the next 6 months if someone were able to get something going that quickly. The same conditions apply for projects which would include 20% or more people of lower and middle income. So if there were communities here or in Kingston who, for example, landlords who wanted to pursue energy efficiency in their buildings, they might also take advantage of that preferential treatment for the next 6 months. It's not a lot of time, but it could happen if you have interested entrepreneurial types in New Paltz who want to go this direction.
So just a summary from our point of view, we just wanted to take the opportunity to come and speak to the trustees just to let them know that this type of conversation is happening just down the street here, and if there's ever an interest, we'd be more than glad to come meet with you again and discuss what we're doing, keep you posted on what we're doing. We are investing in our building. We'd like to make that investment smarter, make it consistent with what you want to do as a village. So if we can work towards the same goal, that would be fantastic. So thank you for your time. That's what we wanted to do.
Okay. Anybody have questions here from the board?
I think the answer is it could be any of these things, but it wasn't clear whether you were talking about gearing this effort toward the village or toward the village and other communities in a regional approach. I guess either or. Want to start with the village?
Mine's the village, and Susan's the wider. I think we have to start somewhere personally. So we're starting with our building,
Okay.
and then we're also speaking to some of the developers across the car park, and they're starting their buildings. And I think something's got to start somewhere. And for me, it's always great to keep track of a much wider goal, and but I think you need to have some critical mass and some initiative, and to begin with, to show that it can be done even on a very small level. So for me, it's local. Susan's more I think, concentrated on the right.
I'm totally in support of the local efforts. You know, we're mostly based in Rosendale, but we have lots of supporters here too. I think any group of people who wants to go forward with these projects, we would wholly support it. I do think that in thinking ahead, we may want to get, sort of see what the next steps might be and make sure that we act in such a way that we make the larger cooperation possible later. Partly because you simply have more weight if you're a bigger organization in terms of the purchase of energy or the investment in, say, large-scale solar or something like that. But I think the answer is both.
Mr. McMaster, I really appreciate your offering your services to actually generate something that could be useful immediately for businesses or even individuals by creating a booklet. I don't want you to think that my question then is you'll never do enough. But would it be wiser to start with a piece of paper kind of product, or would it be wiser to start with a web-like product that people could use in a variety of settings?
Right. I mean, by information booklet, I was using another phrase, of course, but in reality, what we need is just facts. These are the facts and the cases, these are the costs. It should be on the village website, too. So there should be a page on the village website. There's a printable form maybe at farmers markets we can give out or wherever else.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
I would love to see us, oh, yes, Mike, sorry. I would love to see us move forward with this. And one area that I've always wanted to see renewables is up at our water treatment plant up on Mountain Rest Road, which is a pretty significant piece of property, and it's open for the most part. And what I would love to see there too is actually solar panels being used to protect some of the water from evaporation and that sort of thing, which would kind of be a double use.
Thank you for investing in your property to reduce. It was kind of mind-blowing that we lose 40% of our energy just going from production to subsurface. Yeah, and reducing really is the best way. It's reduce, reuse, recycle. People often forget the reduce. Anything that you can do to help the community be more tuned into reducing energy would be incredible. Thank you.
Just a mention of a couple of more resources that might be of use to people. There's quite a lot of information on our website, citizensforlocalpower.com, if you're interested in community choice aggregation or other things that are going on. I won't claim that it's fully up to date, but we're trying. The other thing is that there's a Solarize campaign going on, as you might know. There will be an event in this room, I believe, Jess, on the 1st of October.
I'll find out tomorrow. I'm going to fill out the application.
And there are, it's a community-run nonprofit campaign. Money came from NYSERDA to put this campaign together. It's run through Catskill Mountain Keeper and Melissa's organization. I'm sorry, I'm very tired. Let's just say Hudson Valley. There's a discount because of aggregation again, because of more people signing up during this period. There are two installers involved. They've been very carefully chosen. There are numerous funding opportunities. There are subsidies at the state level and tax benefits at the federal level, the latter of which will go away, we think, likely at the end of 2016. So there are reasons to think about this now. Anyway, just something to be aware of. And I think that just so I'm sort of getting the word out to people in town.
I was thinking of a couple tangible steps we could take. Number one, I like the starter kit idea, and if we could plan to put this item on an agenda, perhaps in October or November, or whatever period of time you need to prepare that. Have us review the starter kit at the same time you talk about next steps. And in between now and then, if you can get a meeting of local leaders and parties together, involve some of us if you want, and we can sit down and figure out what to talk about when we have that next discussion. That would make sense. I'd like to either put this on, also on maybe a January agenda or on the comeback list, so we make sure we talk about this again in the future. That's just my 2 cents. Good. Just
We'll
wait
make
back.
a note, Alberta, so we're keeping it on the comeback list, so it doesn't slip through any cracks. Sure, go ahead, Andrea.
You said something about maybe going off the grid is legal in 6 states. Does that mean it's illegal in the other states? No.
Going off the grid is legal. I wasn't talking about going off the grid per se, but this particular form, community choice aggregation, which usually doesn't go off the grid, actually. It just gives towns the ability to control their own energy system while also connecting with the grid.
Great. Anything else, or we're?
Thank you for coming. Welcome to New Paltz.
Thank you.
So moving on, David, you forgot to remind me to move your items further up in the agenda so you can get home. Does anyone have an objection to taking items 14 and 11 that David's going to comment on?
No.
Yep.
Want to comment on both of those items, David?
The Ulster County Long Range Transportation Plan.
Here, use someone.
I had originally proposed it as an agenda item, but the Ulster County Long Range Transportation Plan draft is now accessible off of Ulster County Planning / Ulster County Transportation Council's webpage. And the opportunity for public comment is really quite finite. It's through September 18th. And so, as community planner, I wanted to let you know that I've looked at the plan. I really don't have very many comments as planner. There's been, in that draft plan, a few data pieces that I've sought out because they weren't readily clear. I really may make some minor comments or make some comments as planner on some of the facts and some of the thrusts within long-range transportation plan. So I wanted you to know that I'm a resource that's available in case you want to discuss the long-range transportation plan. And then specifically, I think the most important opportunity is that the long-range transportation plan is a constrained document in that it's fiscally constrained, that the federal funding environment has not been as supportive as it has been in the past with a fully funded highway trust fund, but which is we're very reliant on for transportation infrastructure planning and development. That said, the Transportation Improvement Program, the long-range funding vehicle for major capital transportation projects, is the basis of the long-range plan. Within the current TIP relating to the long-range transportation plan, we have projects like the new Paltz Land Use and Transportation Plan improvements such as in the 299 corridor. I feel it's incumbent upon me, working also with the Land Use and Transportation Committee, to make sure that projects like improvements identified in the Land Use and Transportation Plan stay on the tip. That said, if particularly you as leaders have any projects that you might identify within a 10-year or greater time horizon, because this is the 2040 transportation plan, the 25-year long-range transportation plan, big, transformative projects for New Paltz, that may be the type of project also that we can articulate as a community. And then also associated with the opportunity to comment on the long-range transportation plan. There's a very real opportunity also in that the Unified Planning Work Program, the UPWP, the annual program of work of the Ulster County Transportation Council. We know that there'll be a call for projects in October, so that's the other part of the note to the village board. The UPWP is a work plan that's used to coordinate all the transportation-related planning activities in Ulster County. And it reflects the planning priorities of the MPO. So if we have any design-related studies, such as maybe study that could help inform a community comprehensive plan, transportation plans, or design studies such as maybe we can do a corridor design and transportation program for the North Chestnut Street Gateway, the North Chestnut corridor, where we can further have consultant-assisted study to plan and program sidewalks and other pedestrian and bicycle enhancements, transit enhancements, and overall corridor and land use coordinated development in the corridor. Those may be studies that we could articulate an interest in having consultant assistance applying for a project. There may be a small local match. I haven't identified resources that we may have for matches, but there also may be an opportunity for Ulster County Transport to find other forms of match. So that's really my briefing on the Ulster County Long Range Transportation Plan, and I'm ready to brief you with that if you want to contact me, as well as the upcoming UPWP, which we understand will have a call for projects in October.
Okay, anyone have questions now, or do we want to?
Just one briefly, I hope. Are you also in touch with the chairs of other related committees in the village, like the Bike Ped Chair, Bill Weinstein, and others who might want to have input?
I was especially...
I noticed that you allude to bicycle and pedestrian use, and these are, we have several organizations that have overlapping interest in transportation.
Very good.
That are headed up by local people.
So the Land Use and Transportation Committee has a meeting this week. They've had a hiatus, next week. They've had a hiatus for the summer.
Yeah.
I'm supposing that this will also be on their agenda, at least for a briefing, and I've reached out to speak with Gail Gallery.
Good.
Ms. Gallery is the town's representative and is the current voting representative to the Ulster County Transportation Council. We toggle between the village and the town. This year it's the town, so Gail's been participating in the briefings as well. And also, at the point that there was an earlier draft available for public comment and a general call for comments, I was also briefing the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee Chair. So I would hope to say yes.
Thank you.
But it is now that the final proposed draft is out, it's a fairly short window, so I'm just making sure also to take this opportunity for broad public awareness and awareness for you as elected leaders to make sure that you know about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you mentioned there'll be a call for projects in October, which is next month.
Correct.
Okay, so what should we be doing as a board to be prepared for that call for projects? Or are you doing that? So.
Well, I feel that it's incumbent upon me to update you of the types of activities that I'm up to as planner. For the UPWP, it's a question of whether we have any consultant-funded studies that we want to promote the Transportation Council funding in 2016. I think I identified an example of a project that might be, I think, worthwhile for the community. Two projects I really mentioned. Whether we ask the Transportation Council for assistance with transportation-related analysis for a long-range plan update here in this community, could be one, and another could be a project such as a design and development study within, for example, the North Chestnut Street corridor, because having worked quite a bit on the NBR mixed-use zoning, I think that there's interest in providing for supportive infrastructure and conditions for quality community development, and transportation and land use are very related. So I think I would say I'm prepared to work on it, and that would probably be two very strong suggestions for studies that I might recommend us applying for one or both. And then a third could be something like continuing to promote furtherance of walking and biking and transit use in the community, such as maybe asking for assistance with a consultant-funded study for design development along the lines of sidewalks and especially sidewalks and service standards for sidewalks, so that we have a very clear development standards of what we want for sidewalks and what we expect for level of service for different types of land uses and different types of contexts within the community, to make sure that we have a very quality, walkable and bikeable environment. So that
So
might
we'll
be
expect to hear that from you in the next couple of meetings.
Those are some of the ideas that I have as planned.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you were also going to comment on the item 14, large trucks on side streets. You did a little
Yes,
research.
so this started back perhaps in
I'm going to give this back to you.
when you have a hole in the table, how am I going to get
Yeah.
stand on the table?
Part of our secret plan.
I'll have to come up to the table even though I sit over there in the corner, right? Yeah, I think that there was this interest in managing large vehicle traffic. It dated back to July. I performed some analysis on the option regarding vehicle weight limits and extending that type of management approach within some of the aspects of especially the residential grid north of Main Street. And I think that I was asked to also look at south of Main Street, and I did so in the memorandum that you have before you. And I also pointed out some of the other policy and planning resources that we have as it comes to managing traffic. I pointed out in my first analysis back in June, July timeframe that doing things also like setting vehicle speed limits can be an appropriate way to manage that type of traffic. And then finally also we have resources like the land use transportation plan that really looked at the major corridors of the community and how to develop those resources, those transportation corridors. But we also have, for example, the Safe Routes to School Action Plan that was a assisted project, a consultant-assisted project, participating of the town and the village and the school district in Ulster County. And so that study provides many also recommendations for how to bring forth a bicycle and pedestrian-oriented environment within both residential as well as non-residential zones, with the consideration of how to get kids safely to school, encouraging them to more often walk and bike, not only because they have to, for example, within the mile radius walk zone of the middle school, but also because it's a healthy choice and it's a smart choice. So I guess that's my introduction to the memorandum that I provided on options for managing vehicle weight and also just transportation development.
So David, did you identify any additional streets that we need to include with our weight limit exclusions?
So, the question came up of whether any other streets could be identified for adding weight restrictions. So in my earlier analysis, I identified streets that could be included west of Main Street, and therefore I presented a very cursory schedule or program of how you could sign different streets west of Main Street. such as, for example, the Manheim corridor and some of the streets around John Street, recognizing that Henry W. Du Bois was already had a weight restriction on it. I looked at the south side of the Main Street grid, and we already have weight restrictions on Platic Hill, and so I didn't bring that memo with me tonight, but basically the recommendation is you already have your weight restricted streets within your village code, but if you added, I think it was it South Oakwood and Lincoln, as I identified, and one other street, you could more fully cover weight restrictions within some of the R zones, the residential zones of the community. So three more streets and points could be signed to achieve weight restrictions.
And that would be in addition to Prospect and John Streets that we had discussed earlier?
That's correct. So three south, and then there's also some changes that could be augmented within the policy on the north side of 299. I think it's important to think about the role that Henry W. Du Bois plays within our community. I know that there's been a lot of strong planning around how both the village and the town might invest in and develop Henry W. Du Bois. For example, I think there's been a lot of efforts to think about sidewalks for the length of Henry W. Du Bois. And, sidewalks, if you achieve sidewalks, do you need a weight restriction? Could there be traffic calming and sidewalks and other ways that still an ability for vehicles to travel that corridor? And I think that's a more complicated planning analysis to provide. But I provided recommendations on weight restrictions, and I made a little comment there for you on Henry W. Which is just, the point is it's an important corridor, I think, for the community.
Hold on to it for a second. Yeah, I'm just curious. I know that a lot of the transportation committees over the summer have been taking breaks, but have you heard anything further on the status of planning for our bus station?
The Ulster County Transit Facility Study hasn't been wrapped up, and my understanding is that there will be final work on that project. The UPWP, the Unified Planning Work Program, is an example. That's a study that was funded through that. I think that we know that there was, it's a very complicated project. On the one hand, we have a great deal of growth in transit use within the community. And an example of that is just look at how they added parking spaces to the commuter lot up on 299 just a few years ago. We're already back at 80% utilization, and it seems like a lot of people in the community talk about how important that parking right is in transit for jobs that we do see people going to New York City. But so the point is that if we as a community had ways that we could further have dialogue about how to get a transit station that the community wanted, certainly that could be another type of study that we could continue with. So we expect results, and that study certainly had no easy solution.
Right.
My understanding of that study and the takeaway, they feel they identified 3 sites that could all work as a bus stop or bus station, and they're going to wrap up that study, as you said, and present it to us to use for however we see fit by end of the year.
Without a recommendation?
By the end of the year.
Without a recommendation.
By the end of the year.
Thanks for that. Okay.
And I just didn't, I thought I was hearing the end of the year, and I just couldn't remember that, and that was correct or not.
Thank you.
So return to this subject of side streets, since we've now talked about it and received recommendations, could we tee that up for board discussion and action of some sort?
What do you suggest, like?
We should probably put it on an agenda and review the recommendations and see if we want to accept some or all, none.
Let me just see if I understand it, because I think I'm in agreement. There is a proposal that if we add 3 streets, for example, I believe on the south side of Main Street, that might encompass all the streets we need in order to effectively restrict large trucks from the residential areas. Is that what I heard you say?
Correct, and
And a couple on the north side.
And then a couple on the north side, but it would be as simple a matter as identifying exactly which streets and then determining whether we as a board are ready to go forward with saying, yes, those streets will have the restriction of trucks over a certain weight and that will be posted.
Well, we have to adopt a local law.
Yes, we would have to adopt the local law.
But didn't this concern originally come out of issues regarding the buses using Prospect?
No, this actually came from large trucks using Prospect.
Large trucks.
And Prospect is not excluded, although Henry DeBlois is. So you can't travel down Prospect without eventually breaking the law. But right now, it's not illegal. And actually, last week, I was traveling south on Prospect Street. The W.B. Mason truck turned from Main Street onto Prospect, and I did a 3-point turn to follow him. Sure enough, he was going to Don's office building on Henry DeBlois.
I don't use.
All right, but they were legally using Prospect Street to get where they needed to get. But I was ready to be the eyewitness for the police on that one.
So
We're
going
going to review the recommendation, we'll put it on the, do you want to put it on next week's or early October?
Probably early October.
Okay, so let's put it on the agenda for early October. And then we can move on to the next topic.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. I wanted to make a few comments about the proposed water project in anticipation of the meeting tomorrow. So the structure of the info session tomorrow on the proposed water project will have Russell Urban Mead from Chazen speaking about, he's a hydrogeologist, he'll be speaking about the aquifer at 101 Plains, and then the other part of the presentation will include the consultant Dave Klauser, who will be talking about mechanics related to the proposed water district. I felt like I wanted to fill in some details about this project. Since taking office at the beginning of June, I've spent a great amount of time speaking with our attorneys, consultants, our point person at the DEP, Dan Rashad, to get me up to speed in terms of what's involved. And then I think something that has been missing from the conversation is, well, there's been a great deal of focus on the proposed water district for Plains Road, but also what does this mean for New Paltz municipal water users broadly? If the project moves forward as it's currently planned, I think an important point that we need to be mindful of is we have no backup water supply in our community, especially in conditions like right now where we have not had rainfall. If we did not have any access to the Catskill Aqueduct, we would have approximately 5 days of water that we could get from our 4 reservoirs up on Mountain Rest Road. So with this new plan, we would have ideally at a minimum 10 weeks of backup water supply. And there are a few moving parts in terms of the project. So the proposed plan includes sourcing water from groundwater wells at 101 Plains Road. a groundwater well from the property formerly known as the Plesser property up near the Toll Booth Plaza. But additionally, there's money that will be spent, and the funding will come from the DEP that would look towards conservation and other improvements and upgrades up at our water treatment facility. And I was looking at the intergovernmental agreement budget between the Village of New Paltz and the DEP to get a sense of how much this project costs and what is being spent on some of these upgrades. So it's approximately a $70,000 expenditure that would help with removing sediment and adding flashboards to the reservoir up on Mountain Rest Road. That would increase capacity up at our reservoir. There are also other facility upgrades that the DEP would be paying for that would improve operational efficiencies. There's also a dam inspection that our reservoir is required to undergo approximately every 10 years. So it's a $25,000 fee that's included in this project. Another kind of real moving target is that would help with conservation and just more efficiency as far as our water usage is we would be working with New York leak detection to identify leaks throughout our municipal water setup. This is across town, village, and through SUNY. And this is an especially important expenditure in that once leaks are identified, then this project would also pay for the repair of those leaks. I was speaking with our superintendent of schools, Maria Rice, and she was particularly interested in this because with the school's capital project, the engineers and architects who are looking at the middle school have identified some very troubling, what they believe to be are leaks that are taking place at our school district. So if we're able to identify leaks in our system and save our school district money, that benefits our community broadly because that's taxpayer money that's essentially being wasted. You think if there were any other, there's also a consultant that was identified that would, and this is kind of an open-ended opportunity in that this consultant specializes in identifying other conservation opportunities through water systems. And I had even asked, could this also include things like rain catchments or using gray water, and all of those things are on the table and things that we could ask this consultant to help us identify if there are opportunities to, for New Paltz to conserve and use less water. And additionally, we, in just regular meetings with our superintendent, Lou, for our Department of Public Works, we have ongoing infrastructure needs related to water and sewer and a variety of things that we use as a municipality. And there are a couple of projects that we are going to have to spend money on as a village. And I'm trying to work with the involved agencies to see if they would also consider helping us either fully or partially fund some of these infrastructure projects. And I've been told if we can make the case that this will help with improving the reliability of our community accessing water during the shutdown period, it's definitely something that could be considered. So, there are several hundred thousands of dollars of money that will be spent in our community related to this proposed water project that will benefit us for many, many years to come. And I think I just felt it was important to include that in the conversation and just make more folks in the community aware of that. And I'll turn to Tom because he's been the point person on this water project for some time to see if I overlooked anything.
Yeah, I think that the generally overlooked parts of this are what you, I think, happily did provide some detail on, because we have spoken very little of the conservation efforts that are included in this plan, although we've worked very hard to assure that they are included. And it's every gallon that we do not leak is a gallon that we do not pay for. And if we're having thousands of gallons leaked, somebody is paying for those gallons of water that come either through our own plant having been treated by us, or that we've actually purchased from DEP. So if we have a better water management program, if we have expanded reservoirs, if we have an end user conservation effort, leak detection, all of those are ways in which we would be using or not using but losing water every day of every year. And the payoff for the village then is multiplied constantly year after year after year. So it's the not really hot item in this whole project, but I think it's really vital and vitally important. I think that people also forget about the lesser part of this, where if this whole project goes through as currently designed, we would have a significant potential source of water from the Plesser property at all times. It would not belong to the village, but it would be available to the village. And we know that it can be about 100 gallons a minute that would be available on a continuous basis from the Plesser area.
Right, and that 100 gallons per minute number is net of any use that the proposed Wildberry Lodge would be using. So I think the estimated yield for the Plesser property is approximately 165 gallons per minute. I could also share that there's been some concerns from residents of Plains Road. Well, if a water district is constructed and there's an infrastructure failure at some point in the future, would that cost be the responsibility of the residents or the participants in that water district? And I've been discussing with our village attorney who specializes in water and sewer on behalf of the village, Dave Merzig, about ways to come up with a plan where the village, because we already have the know-how to deal with water line failures and how could those things be replaced. The anticipation is that with a new water line, you would not have water line failures in the near or intermediate term, or probably for several decades. But I think it's very reasonable for it to be defined early on that if there was such a failure, that, and this is kind of an ongoing discussion, that the village would be responsible for that type of infrastructure failure on Plains Road related to water lines.
A question. In terms of the conservation efforts with the leak detection, is there any sort of a time frame that anyone has in mind? Is it?
Yeah, I can address that at least in general terms. The answer is yes, of course. The design of each phase of the project is about to be launched right now. We have the two phases of this whole project that has gone on since around 2011. And we've already agreed as a body to launch the design phase. That design phase for the town portions has started as of this week. The DEP has already gotten the certification of the IGA between DEP and the town to launch, starting work. Which is really quite remarkable given the tardy approach to contract conclusions that we've experienced over a long period of time. But they have done this with the speed of light. We expect that our IGA with DEP, you'll forgive that, will also be launched in the very near future. So we will not only have the general idea about each of these components, but we will have the design for each of them, and that would include timetables and schedules and so forth.
Anybody else? Comments, questions?
I just real quickly always like to point out that DEP is funding this work, but we also did receive a 9% increase in the rates that they charge us for buying the water, which is typical. So, we're helping them pay for this. That's just how it all works.
If I can say something about that, we can expect to receive increases in the cost of water. And especially New York City is going to spend several billions of dollars on the projects to repair the Catskill Aqueduct. Those monies are going to come from somewhere, and they come very largely from New York City ratepayers. We pay, and this year we're paying more. We're paying a 9.2% that increase. And New York City ratepayers, however, pay approximately 300 times, 300%, not 300 times, forgive that, goof, about a 300% of what we pay for our rates. So where we pay $1,700 for like 1 million gallons, they pay 5,300.
Now, Tom, isn't that water further treated, which kind of makes up for some of the price difference in that they're paying much more than us?
Yeah, it is further treated. When we take water from the Catskill Aqueduct, it is not perfect water. It's very good water. It is not perfect water. And that's what we do up in Mountain West Road. We treat that water.
So, tell me if these numbers are correct. I'm going by memory. I believe we're currently paying, and this is before the 9% increase, about $1.50 per gallon.
No, not per gallon.
Or per 1,000
Per
gallons.
1,000
Sorry,
gallons.
per 1,000 gallons, and the IMA with the town. If we were purchasing water from the Plesser property, for instance, we would be purchasing property for 50 cents per 1,000 gallons.
Yes, approximately 1/3 of what we were paying before the 9% increase, if you can keep track of all of the moving parts.
Right.
I'm not an accountant, so all of these things are in my head someplace and subject to correction.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next item, a request from Victoria Danscan for the Village of New Paltz to pay for the van and driver for the New Paltz International Exchange Association. Rebecca and I can probably both comment and share that there are 18 visitors from our sister city, Nima, in Japan, and they arrived this weekend. There was a great number of volunteers who are hosting many of these visitors, and who have done it for many, many years. Do you know the total number of years this program has existed?
In the mid-90s, I don't remember exactly how many, but mid-90s.
Right, and it seems like this is the greatest number of students from Japan that we've had at
Yes.
18.
It's normally 10 or 12.
Right. So I think it would also be worth mentioning publicly that we have some real dedicated volunteers who make this project happen each year, and they work very well collaboratively with our friend and colleague Mimi, and they're always looking for new Paltz residents to step up and participate in programs like this. But getting back to our request, it's approximately $900 from the village to compensate Dr. Nyquist, who put money up regarding the van that's been used for some of the day trips. I'd like to make a motion that we reimbursed Tom Nyquist.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Jumping ahead to our next topic, the discussion of videotaping. So we touched.
Meeting start times is new business?
No, that's at the end. Well, you want to put that?
I mean, I don't care.
I think people in the audience we're here for the.
Yeah, in case Bob and Andrew want to be set free.
I thought they were here for fun.
So, on our agenda, we have discussion of videotaping of village board meetings, and we've discussed this a couple of times now, where the previous administration made a decision to buy a $9,000 system that automates the process of videotaping our meetings, additionally the ZBA and planning board and any other meetings. And the idea is that they can be uploaded to the village's YouTube channel. And we're making sure that that's all taking place. One of the issues that have been brought up had to do with making sure that this content was being distributed correctly and being shared with the public access channel, and making sure that our clerk's office was taking care of these videos being uploaded to the village's YouTube channel. But I wanted to just bring it up for discussion if anyone has.
The first thing I wanted to
Yep.
say is, I don't think you have a live feed into channel 23 connection to.
That's correct. We do not have a live feed to channel 23. My understanding is that there's a live feed to the internet, so there's a website that anyone with an internet connection could watch this broadcast live, but it's not a live feed to channel 23. And I believe the previous board made the decision that they felt the internet was the medium that more people were using and more people were interested in being able to view and access public meetings. But I believe we should continue to make sure that this content is also then made available to channel 23 so it can be rebroadcast.
Okay, so there's no problem as far as you're concerned, it not going out live on channel 23?
Well, now I'm not speaking for the board. It's going out live via the internet, so anyone who wants to watch the
I
meeting.
believe that's probably the way most people will
Yeah.
look at this, but there are people who don't.
I've had several people approach me to let me know that they're disappointed that they can no longer watch it on 23 Live.
And I think this should be what happened 2 meetings ago is we had this discussion, and I guess the suggestion was made that the former members of the Public Access Commission, who are village members of a committee who are present here, take a look at this issue and work on a solution. We didn't really get a chance to complete that work before a bunch of changes have been started to put in place. As I said earlier, there's a real concern, and especially around election times, every election time, with regard to scheduling and priorities and just all things video. People become very passionate and concerned at those times, and I think it's really important to remove the government from the function of covering itself. And I think in the email that we sent to the board, I projected that we could figure this out, how to have a seamless transition. I think the public should be involved in this and aware. If we're not going to broadcast our meetings on Channel 23, I think we should send a press release and make that known before that practice stops. I think it's people turn the TV looking for something that's been there for years and it's not there. I think we need to communicate that. I think one of the largest concerns that I had about this whole transition to a new system would be the effect of, what they call in the schools an unfunded mandate on the clerk's office, adding an additional burden of, and Bob can go over the number of hours are spent in, or have been spent in transfer and getting this information from one media to the other. But we have a priority in this town that the information is available to Channel 23 quickly, that people can get access to the archives quickly. And if, let's say it's 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and 3 people walk into the clerk's office and they all have issues they want dealt with immediately, we've all of a sudden given the clerk's office a priority. We need to get these videos processed. That's a priority for them. So which is more important? And I just think if we take a couple of weeks to figure this out, we can have a seamless transition without any bumps in the road. And I think doing it without the involvement of people who have put the system together increases the chances of bumps in the road. So I would like to ask that we go with Plan A and let myself and Bob and Andrea sit down and take a look at this and make some recommendations to the village board as to how to proceed. We were figuring we had a little bit more time, and it was not communicated to us that these changes we made before they were made. So we were out there trying to fix the problem, and there's changes being made.
I don't follow what changes were made. I mean, this system was bought before any of us were elected.
Before most of us.
Yes.
Or before. I'm
The
sorry.
website, our village website now has a videos page, and we're now broadcasting the videos live over the internet. Those are changes.
But
And
those were changes that the previous administration agreed to.
But the whole reason that this board asked the 3 of us to look at this issue is the last board didn't ask anyone. They were, and I to my knowledge, and I don't mean to be insulting anyone, but they certainly didn't ask me, didn't ask him, didn't ask her, and we're the people who put it together and know what's going on. So a couple of meetings ago, when I expressed that, it was requested that we take a look at it, and we started to do that. We haven't finished yet, and I'd like to give us some time to finish, and then we can make recommendations about how to have a seamless transition and a planned and communicated transition.
Mayor? At that meeting, I expressed my concern that we were having the discussion in the absence of a person who was the spearhead, or at least the intermediary in our getting this project in place. And I didn't feel comfortable discussing it without Rebecca's presence. So I don't recall saying at that time that I wanted several other people to come up with solutions. I said I didn't want to have the discussion until we had the appropriate person in place here while we were having the discussion.
So let's
I
hear from
did not
Rebecca.
commission you
Yes.
to do something in the interim.
Okay. First of all, this project, from what I recall, was initiated before Tom and I were actually on this board.
May well be the case.
And there were certain details that I knew about also because I was asked at one point, being a person who works at BOCES, if I could ask someone there in terms of the connectivity and all of that and installation. My coworker who actually did the installation recommended an agency out of Albany. We couldn't find that agency out of Albany. And there were a few people who were, potentials in order to put the system in place. And like I said, this all started before Tom and I were on the board. And one of the big questions was the budgetary issues. And a question that was asked of us recently was this to be a savings to the village? Was there a cost analysis? If there was a cost analysis, it was before I rejoined the board. Therefore, I'm not aware of it.
Nor am I.
So, yeah, so
I
this was.
mean, I can share the numbers that Nancy Bronco told me. She said that this system costs $9,000 and that the fees the village's share had been paying to the video service was $13,800 per year.
I'm not sure if that's quite right, but it's close.
I have it in my notes from Nancy.
And I do have the budget worksheets at home, I'm sorry I didn't bring them.
I would say it will be a savings. I just want to make sure the village knows there's ramifications to it. Like I mean, they might not be major to you, like if the village zoning board decides to go into the other room, no one's going to videotape it. No
Yeah,
one's
they
gonna-
would forfeit that option, absolutely.
And if you guys go to a different place, you have an option. If someone has a presentation up there, you're not going to see it. So, I mean, you'll see it, listen. You're also using a standard definition camera, therefore, which is a very obsolete system. It's like 10 years out of date. So you have no high definition.
I'm no expert in this system. I've only been told that the camera is currently set up to be in a static position, but there is the option to move it manually from a laptop. So
That's great. Who's going to do
I'm just relaying what I was,
that?
was told as well.
That's a great thing.
I'm actually very comfortable with, and one of the reasons that I asked the clerk's office what was involved and how we upload this video to the YouTube's village site, and I asked the clerk's office to update our village website to include these videos, is because I wanted the content available. And I feel very comfortable that it's not a heavy lift for our clerk's office to go onto our network, take a file, and copy it onto YouTube.
I didn't even know you could do that.
I'm
No one
very-
told me that you could do
No one told me either. I only learned because I asked.
it. I just learned today.
Yeah. What I would like to do is to find out, and I've been told that we're finding out what file format, because there was a file format issue. That initially, the file format that the camera or the hard drive there saves the video in was too large for YouTube, and there's some way to either work with YouTube differently to use that larger file format. So that is all being sorted out. And then I also wanted to make sure that the Channel 23 option was available in terms of getting that file format to Channel 23 so it could be rebroadcast as.
I just don't understand why no one's talked. I know all this stuff, and I would have helped. I mean, I would have helped everyone to make the system work the way you want it to work.
Yeah, and it's good that we're having this conversation now, because we can. I have no idea why you were left in the dark. At every turn, I have asked that Tom Fagan be involved. Was he asked? Was he updated on what's going on? At every turn, there's a whole slew of emails that I've shared with Don that I think it was pretty clear that that's always been my intention, because this is a project that we inherited.
So, the main thing, since you can upload it live, and you can stream it live, and you can upload it for replay on the web. The only thing I need is a digital file from the clerk. Within 3 business days, because usually we replay next week, that we can convert into an impact for the next system.
So have you shared that those specs with the clerk, so she knows what we're
She
chasing?
said she can get them to me. I talked to her today.
Okay, great.
And so that should work out as long as we're not responsible for anything that you guys do.
But you know, another point that was brought up here this evening that I think is a very interesting one is this idea that we don't necessarily want government being responsible for dissemination of this information, and it's nice to have this third party who does it, and I would be open to the idea for that reason. Maybe we do contract with a third party who's responsible for taking that file off of that machine and making sure it ends up on Channel 23 or on other websites. So there's never this awkward situation where I think that's actually a very interesting point that I'm very comfortable exploring options. So it's not only in the hands of the elected officials in the clerk's office where anyone could say, well, you guys didn't put the full meeting up, part of it was eliminated. So I'm very comfortable exploring ways to do that differently.
Excuse me, but isn't that already like a moot issue since it's going on to the internet without any intervention by anybody?
Right,
You don't have the option of editing it before
It's going out live, but after it goes out live, the file of the meeting exists.
Yes.
So then once it's basically an official record of the meeting that we're putting on our website. It's no longer handled by a third party who was dealing with that file and putting it on a third party's website.
Welcome to my world. Somebody toggles a camera, it's election season, and someone says, the clerk works for the mayor, and they toggle the camera to give a close-up to the mayor because he's running for re-election. These are the kind of things I've actually heard.
Sure.
Honestly. So it's not a false issue. I would like to make a motion that the board continue the live broadcast of our meetings on Channel 23 until we are able to resolve the issue of doing it through the new system. I think that's a huge community resource. It's an appreciated community resource. A lot of people utilize it, they depend on it, and I wouldn't want to just stop it without any notice to the public or discussion with the public or input from the public before it happens. I think that's really important. So it's a long motion.
Andrea's been trying to
wants.
ask it. Can we just have Andrea?
Well,
ask her question?
wait, but we have a motion on the table. So,
I'll withdraw my motion and make it again after Andrea
Okay.
speaks.
So I do want to say that even though I believe that television, as we know, is on its way out, there is a significant elderly population in the village. Not just at Woodland Pond, but these people, my mother, for example, have no access to the internet on their own. And my mother relies on Channel 23 to watch these meetings live. And I don't know about other senior citizens, how many of them, I know many of them have Time Warner cable at Woodland Pond, for example, because they have a really great rate there. And so that population will not be here forever. But right now, I think they may be disappointed to find that they can't watch meetings live. And I agree with Dawn that it's something that it's so disappointing to me to know that it's just going to stop without any notice to the public. So I would like to see it continue. And, I understand that you don't want to bear the expense of it. I'm not sure in the long run it's really that much of a savings, and I think it's something that's important to spend on.
There's another variation on that theme. I can only think of three times it's actually happened. But there happened at least 3 times in my memory where I've been watching a live meeting on Channel 23 and gotten upset about something and gone down to the meeting to make a public comment before the meeting ended. So there's that too. It's not just, but you bring up Woodland Pond, and I've made the point several times that we seem to pay a lot of attention to Woodland Pond during election season, and not a lot of attention to them during other times. And this is an example where I think, this is an important part of our community, and I think we need to, look out for them and all the other seniors in the community. But I think you make a valid point.
I just want to make it clear, I spend a lot of time at and pay a lot of attention to Woodland Pond.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that the village board continue the live broadcast of our meetings on Channel 23 through whatever means are viable at the time. I assume that will soon be through the automated system.
Friendly
Okay.
amendment?
Let me stop I went on a little bit with that motion. I'd like to make the motion that the village continue its live broadcast of its meetings on Channel 23.
Friendly amendment? That the committee, whether or not you're considered official or not, also continue to do the work as you suggested earlier.
I would certainly accept that amendment.
Well, do we need a second before we open this up for discussion? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so discussion. I'm a little bit concerned about the time frame, because we're spending north of $2,000 a month to now we're going to have redundant systems for how long? And I think we could.
Where'd you get $2,000?
What?
Where did you get $2,000?
Well, I'm sorry, it's just over $1,000 a month.
It should be like $920
The,
for 5
it's
meetings.
13.
5
it's-
meetings.
It's
5 meetings at $185.
13,800 was what Nancy said that we would save by using this automated system.
Which might be including special meetings and stuff like that. You do 5, we're a contractor for 5 meetings a month.
Right.
And we're asked every now and then for an extra meeting.
I feel like we could accomplish this letting the public know that we're switching to the internet versus Channel 23, communicating with the executive director at Woodland Pond to make sure the word is out that this change is taking place. Because there are also people at Woodland Pond who do use the internet. You know, this is a material expense, and this idea of having redundant systems really flies in the face of a very significant savings that our treasurer has been counting on as far as creating our budget. I mean, we actually use this savings to get comfortable with spending $650 or bonding $650,000 to purchase the Millwood Reserve. So this was an important piece of that savings.
You don't have to convince me.
I'm just
just
looking
an
towards
employee.
you,
Yeah.
but I'm talking to our full board here.
Well, I think that would provide a really strong incentive to resolve the issue quickly rather than slowly. If there's an expense to having redundant systems, I think it would behoove us to get our act together to figure out how to go through the new system to broadcast live. I don't think it's impossible or difficult to figure it out.
Say not planning to do that, though.
What?
I'm a little confused, because I thought the plan was to no longer broadcast live on the channel.
Well, we are, right, the plan is not to
To
broadcast
just
live
stream
on
live
23. So it's
Can
unclear
I
to
say
me
one
what
thing?
we're actually
One thing about
trying
that?
to
So
accomplish
I
here.
think you could.
Right.
We could, so maybe that's the function of this committee or this kind of,
And I think it's just a matter of, getting the signal into the modulator.
okay. I'm
Which I
very
don't think
comfortable.
is rocket science, but no one's telling me anything.
Well, I'm very comfortable with that idea. If we look to you to help us identify what our options are here. I'm uncomfortable just saying we're going to continue to have 2 recordings of our meetings. But if we put a time frame attached to this motion, I would get a lot more comfortable.
How about by the second meeting of October?
This is the first time hearing tonight that the plan is we're no longer going to broadcast our meetings live on Channel 23. That's a big deal to me. And I think that certainly as a member of the board, I would like to have a discussion of that. I don't sign on to that plan. Not at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. So, it may be the plan that the last board put in place, and maybe some plans that other people, I'm a trustee, I don't know anything about it. I don't agree even a little bit. So I think we have to have that discussion. In the meantime, I think the expense of redundancy creates the pressure to solve this problem quickly. And I'm comfortable with that.
Can I make one suggestion? Could we do a dual, have us do it for, until like the second week of October, and you do it also, just to see what the problems are, because we really don't know until you do it a few times what the problems could be. And in the meanwhile, I can look and see if someone can give me a name of whoever installed this, someone I can contact, I will talk to them and see where the signal's coming in and what we can do about getting it into the module. But that's going to bring up another responsibility for whoever's running the meeting through the automated system, is they have to turn that on and turn it off, because this feed to the modulator overrides the one in the community center. So if this is left on, we won't have channel 23. So it's not a big deal. It's probably going to be a switch.
Right. A lot of, since this was installed, Bill Walton is a person at BOCES who did the installation, and he has been working with Katie's office. The last I understood, there's something that he needed in order to make the connection happen, and as far as I know, he was in contact with Brian from TechSmiths, who basically does, all the computer work for Village Hall. And I don't know at what point you were left out of the picture. Right, well, and like I said, this is something that we inherited, and, I don't even, we were asked about a cost analysis and everything else. I had no clue. And I heard that it was a former trustee who had this idea sometime back when, and then it was another former trustee who had the ability to install the system and then declined. So I don't know if
I don't even know that much.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
yes. And we do have a motion on the table.
We do. I would vote for the motion on the table if there is an end date of the second meeting in October. Which meeting?
Village board.
Village board meeting. If there's not, I don't know if,
So will
That's
Don
a moot
accept
point.
that?
I can't imagine it not being done by then, so I'm comfortable with that.
okay, is that accepted as a friendly amendment?
Absolutely.
I'm good with that.
Okay. You want to vote?
And then in the interim, Bob's gonna see what options we have.
Can someone give me your contact information?
Rebecca will get you.
Yeah.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Can we go to the next topic? You want to talk about the Lalo group who was before us on August 26th? They had a presentation about a hotel project and a residential property project on the 2.4 acre parcel that's in front of, just to the west of us here at Village Hall in the pit. Any comments?
What are you looking for?
Well, I think what we were looking for was, they were before us because they wanted to get a sense of whether we would consider a legislative change that would allow that use in that B2 zoned property.
With that in mind, I do not feel that this fits the character of the village. I would not be in favor of amending any code. If they are not willing to include affordable housing and they are looking to build 6 stories up, that does not meet the character of the village.
So, what I would like to suggest is that we relay to them that we would only consider their project if there were some material changes to the way it looked and felt and how it would work with our village. I think what we saw was, at first glance, was a little bit difficult to digest. And we would need to see something else before we could honestly consider a legislative change.
A high-end boutique hotel in the village is a great idea, but as they're proposing it, I am not.
Any other thoughts?
I was very unpleased to hear the comment about the affordable housing law. They're looking to have us waive that. I wonder if we wouldn't be stringing them along to ask them to modify it. I am thinking of what sort of scalpel approaches to that project, would make it acceptable. And all I can think of is X level, really major. So I guess if we can convey that in some way, I mean, they can certainly try and modify it, but they would have to take a banana and turn it into an orange. I think to have it be potentially viable.
Well, I'm a dissenting voice on that. I believe that while the project as initially presented may not fly at all, that doesn't mean that their first idea is their only idea. There are projects that go on for decades, if not centuries, before they're finished. You would find them in every municipality in the United States. And I would not want to convey that we are an anti-development board, which we might very well be conveying by using language like axing. I do not want to axe this project. I want to encourage them to figure out how to make it work. And that would include, by the way, incorporating affordable housing. So that would be how I would want to convey something to them.
I wasn't suggesting the word axe in anything formal to them. And I don't know that
Well,
a
you
board is...
broadcasted axe.
It's a term. It's a title. You scalpel. I used axe. Okay, your point's well taken. And I certainly didn't mean any offense by that. I think looking at what the planning board and what this board potentially is doing with the new mixed-use neighborhood zoning for Route 32 suggests we are anything other than a pro anti-development board. I even suggested when they were here that if that project were be able to be located in some way, shape, and form there, that it might be more well received by the community and by the board. So your point's well taken. I don't want to send out that message either, and if I did, I will withdraw it. And,
I don't think we need to make a motion, but I'm asking the board to allow me to pick up the phone and let them know how we're feeling, that at first glance, we need to, I think Tom articulated it very well. It just needs to feel or look a little bit different. So we're not opposed to the concept generally, but we need something else. Are you guys okay with that?
Go back to the drawing board. Draw.
Okay, just a quick comment. I agree with everyone's sentiment about the affordable housing. We started working on that legislation in 2003, 2004. Dorothy Jessup was one of the people on the committee, and the late Dennis O'Keefe, who's one from on our fire department. And the committee was a very diverse committee, and it was formed for that reason. Different people who would have some basically background or interest. There was a person from Rucco at the time, pre-Guy Kemp, and a lot of work went into it, and I would not want to see any project that fits within the size of that legislation to move forward without upholding them.
I think we're all on the same page there. There's no large residential project is coming in and they're going to look for a legislative change regarding our requirement to include 10% of the units when there are 10 or more units to be affordable. So
Just like Tom was concerned about the language of X, I'd be concerned about language, making it look a little bit different. I think it would need to look a little bit more than a little bit different, so just choose your words carefully when you talk about
About just different.
cool. I'm with that.
Next topic. Oh, I can give you an update on the discussion on parking, the signs. So I spoke with Nick about this, and we were looking at the inventory of signs that the DPW has, and it was actually an interesting conversation because we were just talking about signage broadly and what works well with the DPW and how the DPW is always in favor of opposite side of the street parking. Alternate side of the street parking as a general rule. For every street, that would be on his wish list. He said he feels like that's been communicated to past boards and he wanted that to be shared with us. But I don't think this is a challenging correction that we're undertaking regarding making some of the signs more clear on the streets around Hasbrook Park. So I'm continuing to work on that. The next item was this update on pump noise from Moriello Pool. I figured I would share that with the board and publicly. I'd spoken with Blue, who reached out to Chris Marks on this topic because there's a resident on Mulberry Street who's had issues with the pump. I guess the pump had been in a pit inside the mechanicals room at Moriello Pool, and now it is at ground level, and that's a metal mechanicals room. The door's open, it has vents. It makes some significant white noise, and we received a note from this property owner concerned about the noise. So in a conversation that I had recently with Chris Marks about it, he said with the season ending, he actually believes that there may be an opportunity to open up that pump and replace some ball bearings that he feels will help with the noise. He thinks that there may be an issue with something internal failing. So our fingers are crossed that will help with some of the decibels. But there's definitely a challenge there. You have a metal mechanicals room that could probably benefit from some internal insulation or soundproofing. I guess another issue is that door to that room is regularly open, so you could insulate the heck out of that mechanicals room and it wouldn't mean anything if the door is wide open. And I think the operators of the pool who do a fantastic job have just been conditioned over the years, because in the past there was a pump that would overheat, so when they left the door open, that was a better solution. So, we have to figure out, is that an ongoing risk with this new pump? But Chris Marks from our town highway department person seemed very on top of that, so I just wanted to relay that to everyone here. Next topic, this idea, we were looking to formally change our meeting start times from 7:30 to 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next topic.
I'm sorry, who seconded that, please?
I second, Don moved it.
Nay.
You against it?
Yeah.
You wanna?
Let's discuss it, I'm sorry.
No, second. Oh, no, sorry. Mayor second?
I second it.
I don't know, I feel like I would want to get some public input on it. It's 10:30 at night.
It could be 10.
I know, but generally, over the years, it's always pretty much been agreed that is a good start time for public meetings. Families, feed their kids, if someone wants to put their kid to bed and come to the meeting, what have you. But I would like to maybe, since I didn't hear about this before,
Let's put the future. It's fun. It's fun.
But there are numerous other public meetings in this community that start at 7. just,
And it's kind of a double-edged sword because, yes, you can get the kids to bed and get down here by 7:30. Not my kids; they're never in bed by 7:30. But at the same time, the meeting is then later, and you're here later. And as someone that sat in the public for close to a year observing meetings, it's really late. And I'm fortunate in that I typically work from home on Thursdays, so I had that ability. If I did not work from home on Thursdays, I don't know if I would have been able to sit here for as many meetings as I did in the past year. Just because it does go very late, even with, relatively modest agendas, not the 7-page agendas as the past.
So you want to put it on a future agenda and
Want
one
to
or two
vote on
meetings?
it one more time? Or is this sufficient?
The motion can pass.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, let,
Trustee Rocco, were you a nay or
No, I voted for.
a? Yeah, and that's what I thought. wanted to make
I would
sure.
be neutral as to it because I have no small children. And I live about 50 feet from here. So there are lots of reasons for me not to care very much. But if it is more convenient for people, then I'm certainly open to moving it from 7:30 to 7.
so let's take a vote.
We did.
We did?
Good.
Yeah.
So I was in favor of 7.
4 people were in favor.
So we have 4 to 1? Does
Yeah.
it
4 to
pass?
1.
Yeah, it passes.
Okay. Next topic, the Mohonk Foothills project. I shared that information that was passed on to me from Mohonk Preserve people. I wanted to see whether our board was interested in creating a comment that said we would support the proposed Mohonk Foothills project. A few of us, I think Don may have been on vacation when we took a look at the project and the testimonial gatehouse with the director of the Mohonk Preserve.
Yes.
And just wanted to see if our board would be interested in creating a comment to share with the town planning board in support of that project.
Before any discussion, I just want to point out, due to a potential conflict of interest, I will be recusing myself from this conversation.
Okay. Any other comments?
What would it mean? I mean, we would just be, and I use the word just advisedly in this case, we would just be saying, what we've seen, we like.
Right.
Something like.
Why is it an issue that some folks in our community are concerned about or opposed to? It includes 90 parking spots near the testimonial gatehouse, some of the residential properties nearby. Some support it and some do not, but those who do not don't like the idea of the additional traffic or visitors on that amazing section of Lenape Lane that has trees all the way down and a bridge where you get that kind of amazing vista of the ridge. So the feel of that area could change with more visitors. I mean, granted, many locals already use that area and park nearby to walk or jog or take their dogs out. But it would be probably different with a designated parking spot. Why I feel comfortable with it is I think the Mohonk Preserve has an established track record of being an amazing land steward, and I'm very comfortable with this project, and I think if there was anyone taking care of our open space, I want it to be the Mohonk Preserve. Any reason why our board would not want to have a formal statement that we would relay to the town planning board on this topic? So we have 4 voices left.
We've lost a couple of giants in this community over the past year, and We have honored Maurice Whiteman. We've also lost Norman Turner, the chair of the town's environmental, the ENCB. And I didn't have a chance to attend the village's presentation about this project, but I did have a chance to receive and understand Norman's concerns about this project. So if we're going to vote on this, I'm either going to abstain or vote no, just because I didn't get the positive, I didn't get the negative. That's just me. You asked, I answered.
Three left.
Wow. Dropping like flies. I kind of wish that, Dawn actually could have attended with us. It was a very interesting meeting. There are aspects of the project that I really like the fact that there will be kind of a student-kid focused educational piece to it. The parking, I'm not sure how I feel about that many spaces. Is what I can say. How do you feel, Tom?
I liked very much the way they left most things alone. And I liked very much their explanation of how they've already adjusted their parking to keep it from being an intrusion on most of the access that, well, all of the access that pedestrians and bicyclists would use. So there was much about it that I liked. I just don't know that I'm comfortable saying I understand the whole architectural vision and that formally I'm in favor of the whole thing as it stands. I'd like to say I'm in favor of the development that they're proposing, and I think they have taken account of most of the objections that I've heard people make. And by the way, people have been making these objections pretty loudly, so it's very hard not to know what the objections have been. So I liked what we saw. I liked the presentation that they made. I have the materials that they gave us. I've gone over them a couple of times. I just don't feel like I'm knowledgeable enough. If I was on the planning board, I guess I would have to say yay or nay. And I have been on the planning board, so I suppose I could say yay or nay. So yay, I like the project generally. I don't know what I would say if it was a particular thing, and I would say come back to us with a change. I don't know what I would say. But I like the way they're going.
I was on the town planning board and reviewed this project.
So tell us what you thought.
I mentioned 90 parking spots in the testimonial gave us. There's another section off of 299, so there's some additional parking there. So I think that parking was like an additional 12 spots.
12 and 14, something like that, that's what they said.
But from where I sit, there's almost nothing as important as that ridge and the Mohonk Preserve and taking care of that open space. I think, to me, this is New Paltz. The idea of the Mohonk Mountain House not selling that property to OSI, who then sold it to the Mohonk Preserve, and what else could have occurred there. I think this is really important stuff. This is what we should be doing in New Paltz, is letting the Mohonk Preserve protect and take care of our open space. And if they have a vision of how it should be accessible to our community and visitors, I'm very comfortable with their vision.
I think I kind of feel tweeting bullish on this. I'm
Well,
not,
the
I'm
reason-
not against it.
Right, the reason that, I'm just throwing this out
Yeah.
there. So the town planning board is meeting on the 16th, next Wednesday, when we will be here, talking about what we talk about.
What is that anyway?
Raymond
It's
Carr.
10:40.
That's 7. But, if we have 2 abstaining and you guys are kind of neutral-ish.
It's not
let's
that,
just-
it's
let's
not that I'm
just,
neutral, it's an issue for me of particulars. I don't know that I'm so comfortable with all the particulars. And again, some of it might be not even that I'm not comfortable, it's that I'm ignorant, I've looked at the designs that they gave us, I've gone over them a couple of times. Now that I said out loud, well, if I were on the planning board, I would have to make a judgment. And I've been on the planning board, so I would have had to make some judgment, so I shouldn't weasel out. So I think what I'll say is I would go with you on the yay vote, knowing that I don't know all the details.
Where are you, Rebecca?
Wow. I wish I had no idea that we were being honest. I'll just say I'm not opposed to it.
How do you put that in motion?
Yeah.
What's that?
How do you put that in a motion?
If it goes to a vote, I'll vote for it. I wish we would, I had no idea.
Well, I don't wanna force anything down anyone's throat.
Well, you want to take a shot at a reasonable motion, because motions,
No, it's like they
motions
say
can be
reasonable
very
motions, it's funny.
particular, and they can be framed for the point at hand. What are we trying to do? We're trying to convey that we're generally in favor of this project going forward. Something,
Is that your motion, Tom?
oh, I don't know, is that my motion? That's my feeling. And it's public. Going out over the internet now. And it's unpracticed. I don't know, I did not know I was to do something.
So that's my motion, that,
Well, is it?
the village board is, supportive of the Mohawk Foothills project, generally, conceptually. It seems like we're trying to dial it back a little bit, so we're not committing to too much. Is that why you're
Well, it's
suggesting
just,
some sort of special phrasing?
Moving forward, or Susan's term? Just what you just said, that we're in favor of this project moving forward.
That's bland enough, or even I could vote for that.
Pardon?
That's bland enough that even I could vote for that.
Okay, say it again, Rebecca.
Start off the village of New Paltz board is in favor of the Mohawk Foothills project moving forward. I don't know if you want to say in the planning process.
are we actually addressing the planning board?
Yes.
Yes.
So should we then say that we wish to convey to the town of New Paltz Planning Board that
Yes.
the New Paltz Village board is in favor of this project moving forward.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And why didn't we take a
Did you
similar
vote?
vote saying we don't want to do it with CDS, no, we were a letter? But if we're taking motions on projects for the, let's just keep that in mind for a future meeting. Let's go home. I don't want to do that right now, but I'm just like, why did we vote against CDS? Wait a minute.
Did you get that language, Alberta?
Mostly, yes.
You want to repeat it back? I don't.
I have, we wish to convey to the town of New Paltz Planning Board that, that the village board is in favor of Mohonk Foothills project. Yeah, Foothills project moving forward.
Yep, that was it.
Good
All right.
job, everybody.
You want to have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
No discussion. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.